my friend, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello, my name is Nicole. I have been sharing my journey with the School of Affluence's program, Secret to the Elite Woman, with all of you here on YouTube, and if this is your first time here, I would love if you considered subscribing to this channel. Now, in this video, I will be going through week number 5 of the program, and in the same fashion as all the previous modules, this one was jam-packed as well. Now, surprisingly enough, there were so many references to the Queen and royalty, and considering the week that the monarchy had this week, I found it quite fitting. So with that being said, let me get into what we learned in this week of the course. In this particular week of the Secrets of the Elite Woman, we learned about etiquette, deportment, and speech and manners, but I'm going to briefly be touching on some of these points today, and hopefully you find it beneficial as well. Now, if you are new here, you may not know what I do for a living. I am a full-time content creator, and with that, I often get invited into very fancy establishments around the place that I live in, and sometimes even further abroad. And I love that the first part of this week's lesson was all about etiquette, and I will give you a little bit of a story time, because when I first moved over to England, I ended up going on a press event with Thai Airways. And on this press event, it was just around London, and some of the people that were at this event, everyone just looked like normal people. I couldn't tell who was who, etc. There came a point in the night where the person that was sitting next to me was a general manager of one of the most iconic hotels that you will find in London. I won't say the name. And I remember in that moment being shocked with my behavior, and I started refining and thinking, what did I do? What did I say? And that was one of the moments where I really started to realize that these minute details and the topic of etiquette really mattered to me. And with saying that, one of the things that Anna says in this lesson is we learn etiquette to feel confident. And I completely agree with that, because in that moment where I realized who was sitting next to me, I felt so inconfident. I felt very insecure about the way that, not necessarily I was behaving, because I wasn't behaving in a lawless manner, but I started reflecting on what I did and if it was right. And that made me feel very uncomfortable, and I don't want to feel like that. So that is why I was really interested in learning what Anna had to offer in this part of the course. Now, you can find a lot of information online in regards to different etiquettes around the world and how you should maybe dine in this manner or dine in this manner. Basically just comparing maybe English dining styles to maybe French dining styles, and Anna goes in a little bit deeper on those topics in this portion of the course. So I think if you were really interested in that part of this particular video, you can definitely start doing your research online and start learning through online forms of content. Now, with that being said, one of the areas that Anna goes into in this particular part of this week's lesson is how we should use certain glasses, when to use certain glasses, when to order certain types of drinks, etc. And if you are somebody that really have a interest for this, and I feel like you want to put this into practice in your day-to-day life, one of the best things for myself personally I found was going to wine tastings. If you go to a wine tasting, you will often get first-hand experience at some of the things that Anna is talking about in this particular portion of the course. And I loved that I was able to pair those memories from whenever I have gone wine tasting to what Anna was speaking about, and therefore I'll be able to just tweak certain parts of maybe what I've done previously and conduct myself in a more correct manner next time. And now, following on from that particular point, if you go somewhere that is quite fancy, maybe a 5-star type of establishment, you will find that often the person who is serving you will be able to recommend you to the appropriate wine pairing. Furthermore, if you go to a restaurant that has a set menu, they will often bring a wine that is perfectly matched with the food that you are being served. On my wedding night, that's situation that ended up happening. And I believe I've gone somewhere else with one of my friends recently, well, before the pandemic, and we had a restaurant experience like this. And I just want to reiterate that in this part of this video, because if you are going to go out and you are a little bit unsure and insecure about the wine pairings that you may choose for your meal, you can always ask. Often people that work in restaurants, they have had extensive training on what to pair what with. I mean, not all restaurants will have a certain standard or a certain level of wine training, but the higher end establishments definitely do. Now, one of my favorite parts of this week's lesson was Anna teaches you how to wipe your mouth in an appropriate manner. And I actually had many restaurant jobs when I was younger, and that is one thing that definitely stands out, and it doesn't look very hygienic or clean, and I definitely didn't know the right way of going about wiping my mouth or using a glass in a way that is not going to look tacky or gross. So I really enjoyed Anna's take on how to use a napkin properly, discreetly, and in an elegant way. Now, moving along into the next section of this week's particular lesson, Anna spoke in depth about deportment, what it means, how to stand, how to get up, how to get in the car, etc. And again, I'm not going to be going into all of this, but I really did enjoy this particular part of the course. Now, my posture has been something that I have reflected on for quite some time now. If I find a particular picture, I will place it right here. I was at a girlfriend's wedding and a photographer snapped a picture, and you can see me in the background of this photo, and my posture, the way that I'm sitting, everything about this photo is absolutely tragic. And I think that sometimes the awakening moment that a lot of people have is that they get some type of photo or video of themselves where they can see themselves in a candid moment, and then it really makes them reflect on how they present themselves. And I know that this was a moment for me. Now, beyond that, I actually have arthritis in my lower back and my SI joints, and a lot of why and how this has happened was due to poor posture and bending techniques. And with saying that, working out should be something that is a part of my regular daily routine, and I'm embarrassed to say that it's not. And I think often people take working out in regard to their physical aesthetic, when in actuality, if you have strong muscles in your back, in your core, etc., that's also going to help your posture, which is also going to come off in the way that you look and the way that you hold yourself and the way that you walk into a room. So for me personally, that's a journey that I'm on, falling in love with working out. I don't know how else to say it. I definitely haven't found that love yet, but I'm hoping that the more and more convicted I feel about it is the more and more dedicated I'll become with my routine. That being said, do you know how previously at the beginning of this video I mentioned how there was a lot of talk in regards to the monarchy and the queen? Interestingly enough, one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to, Homemaker Chic, they interviewed, I don't remember his name unfortunately, but they interviewed this author, and he wrote a book recently about the queen and how she conducts herself and her lifestyle, etc. And one of the things that he spoke to was the queen's posture and how she used to wear a brace, and how even today she maintains such a impeccable posture and impeccable standard of care. And even though she might not be able to withstand maybe standing for long periods or sitting up in a chair properly with the right distance behind her back, etc., if you look at her history, you can see the level of excellence there. And then I loved how that coincided with what Anna was speaking to. So I actually think that I might pick up his book and read it and look into the queen in this regard a little bit more. If that podcast sounded of any interest to you, I will have it linked for you in the description box. Now, as Anna is going through this course, you definitely will feel areas of conviction, areas that you know that you have maybe slacked in. At least I know that has been my experience. And Anna goes through some of the ways that you can sit elegantly and sit down elegantly and get up elegantly. And one of the examples that she gives in this portion of the course, I just could see one moment coming to my mind when she was talking through it. And for me personally, I am a pear shape. My bottom is a lot heavier than my shoulder area, and I was hosting a talk about a year and a half ago now, and I was wearing this dress and I was sitting in a cross-legged way, and one of the examples that Anna gives in regards to sitting in a non-elegant way was exactly how I was sitting at this particular talk slash workshop that I was hosting. And I'll just give you a bit of an example. As I am more bottom heavy, I was sitting with cross legs, and of course I thought that was the appropriate way of sitting, because as there was an audience ahead of me here, I didn't want to be flashing everybody that was looking on towards the stage. And as I mentioned, I had my legs crossed, but the thing is that even though my dress was knee length, when I sit down, it obviously rides up a little bit. And then someone in the crowd had taken an Instagram story, and you could see some of my cellulite on the side of my thigh. And everything that Anna was saying in this moment just flashed before my eyes, because I had the real world experience to prove that what Anna is teaching on is actually really correct. And if you make these small tweaks, you can then improve on the area that she's speaking to. And I think if that's my biggest recommendation or words on this course is if you have lived a level of life that you can see the experience that you've had, you can then hear what Anna is saying and know that a lot of it is truth, and perhaps even the things that you might not think is true just yet. Because you can see how right Anna has been with other things, you can have a level of trust with her that what she is saying, if you adapt it, is right. Because she was right about everything else, surely she is probably right about this. Now, I won't be showing you myself on how Anna explains to sit, but if you would like to look up the Cambridge cross, I'm sure you will get many examples of this online, and maybe perhaps you can start implementing it into how you sit and how you conduct yourself. Now, saying all of that, I really feel like this portion of the course has shown me that this all contributes to your personal brand. And I feel like a lot of people think that your personal brand is just the way that you've styled your hair, the earrings that you wear, the nail polish that you wear, etc. When really how you hold yourself, how you speak, how you conduct yourself, all of these things are going to be what contributes to your personal brand. If you have made it to the last portion of this video, you'll be in for a little bit of a juicy piece of conversation, because last week I had an amazing comment that was left for me on one of my YouTube videos about how I use the word furthermore a lot. Now, what this particular commenter I don't think realized is, as I was editing that video, I 100% realized that I said furthermore far too much. Now, this is the interesting thing with YouTube. I feel like we meaning the people that put ourselves out there on YouTube, we know that we are going to be opening ourselves up to a little bit of criticism. But that being said, I often think that the commenter that is leaving such comments doesn't realize that this person probably has picked up on this. And I don't need to tell them. Furthermore, we move. Portion of the course, Anna teaches us or speaks to us about how we can speak more confidently. And being honest with you, I thought I was a confident speaker. And Anna recommends to those in the course to film themselves and see if they can pick up on the things that maybe they do that isn't as refined or as elegant. Now, I've been filming myself for a very long time. As I mentioned at the first part of this video, I've been working as a content creator for the past 3 years, and before that I had a beauty business where I was often sharing my life and my business online. So speaking isn't something something that I've just started to do. Now, with saying that, I think when certain habits become the norm and routine, you can then start falling into a place of complacency. So if you wait till the end of this video, I'm going to be giving you an extra hack that Anna didn't include in the course, and maybe she doesn't even know herself, but it has helped me this week amazingly. So if you are wanting to speak more confidently, where should you go? Should you go on YouTube? Should you invest in a coach? Like, what should you do? And I suppose this brings you to a certain question, and that is, why do you even think that the way a person speaks is important? And I'll share something a little bit personal with you. As some of you will know, I am Canadian and I now live in the UK, and I actually live in the city of Bristol. And if you are familiar with Bristol at all, you'll probably be familiar with the Bristolian accent. And a lot of people here don't think that the Bristolian accent is one to be desired. And it got me thinking, do accents matter? I personally, when people would bring this up with me, I would say, I don't think that you should change your accent in the slightest. Your accent is what makes you authentic. Your accent is a part of you. But with saying all of that, I think we actually need to ask ourselves, can an accent define somebody? Can an accent make or break somebody? I listened to this podcast about YouTube, and if you scroll back all the way to the beginning episodes, the host, he actually sounds he's from America, and he sounds very Southern. And as the episodes progress, he then explains why he has decided to tone down his accent a little bit. He felt that he just wasn't being taken seriously with a very Southern drawl kind of accent. And one of my fellow classmates in this program and we have been discussing this in DMs, because this particular person is from Australia and I'm from Canada. And for me personally, the minute that I have moved somewhere else, I can hear my Canadian accent so much stronger than I ever did before. I'll give you a quick example. When I say the word for, I don't typically say it for with like a O in the middle. I say fur, F-E-R, when that's actually not how it's spelled or how it's pronounced at all. Now, if you are reflecting on if speech even matters, I would love for you to think of it this way. People often see us first, but then they hear us second. So don't you want them to have a great opinion of you when they first see you, and then that be continued once they hear you speak? I know I do, and I'm really looking at having a consistent personal brand. And what does that mean? How will that play out in my day-to-day and how I dress myself and how I speak and how I act? It's almost like you are stacking on top of these habits, because one habit is going to help you with the next habit. Does that make sense? I think if that makes sense to you as it does to me, you'll understand why maybe using certain slang or not enunciating or swearing is not going to be the most conducive thing if you are looking to improve on your speech and speak a lot more confidently. One of the things that Anna mentions in this part of this week's lesson is how often if someone is at a place where they are considering changing their accent or refining their accent, it at first might feel a little bit inauthentic, because you kind of feel like you are putting on an accent that is different to your own. But the way that she proses this idea and this concept is, if your accent is putting you into a box, you may have to start picking your battles. And I know for me personally, living in a country where a lot of people think that I'm American, and as we saw in this week's Oprah interview with Meghan Markle, sometimes being American in this climate isn't very well received. So for me personally, I am looking at toning down my Canadian accent just a little bit and really enunciating a lot more. So as I wrap up this video, I want you to ask yourself, how do you sound? Are you speaking very fast? Is the way that you speak quite jarring? I know this is something that I personally have picked up on, especially at the beginning of some of my YouTube videos. I come in too fast, I'm quite loud, I'm quite pitchy. Tone matters, definitely. Now, one of the other things we need to consider is speaking too slow. I think this is where maybe I have misjudged or prejudged some of my fellow females that speak to femininity here on YouTube. I find a lot of people start speaking quite slow and it just feels a little bit inauthentic and often quite boring when they're speaking so slow. You may want to ask yourself, are you using any euphemisms? And I love this portion of the course where Anna dives a little bit deep into euphemisms and maybe some of the things that we should refine in the way that we say them. Since moving to the UK, this is one thing that I have picked up on from the beginning, and I will give you a little bit of an example on that. And if I was back home in Canada, I may say I'm going to the bathroom, and here in England they will say I'm going to the toilet. But you don't need to say what you're going to do or where you're going to be. And often I will hear a lot of people here say I'm going for a wee, and I used to think I don't need to hear what you're going to do. It makes no difference to me. Now we've made it to the end of the video. Let me tell you the hack that I've personally been implementing this week, and it has helped me a lot. If you've made it to the end of this video, you may have noticed that I am enunciating my words way more than my previous videos. And I actually pre-film a lot of my videos, so you may not see me implementing this in some of my videos coming up, and that's just because they have been pre-filmed. But as I have a blog alongside a YouTube channel, I have been turning some of these videos into blog posts, and I get these videos transcribed, and then I'm able to enter them into a blog post. But here is the thing. I have really noticed how if I don't enunciate my words, the transcription service does not work in the slightest. And so that has allowed me to start speaking a lot more enunciated, because if not, that transcription doesn't work, or it doesn't come out as accurate as it could be. So for me right now, if I take the time to speak slowly and to enunciate correctly, I know that I'm saving myself a little bit of time in the future when I go to turn this video into a blog post. I'm thinking ahead. Now, another way that you can get around this, Anna recommends to film yourself, and you can totally do that. But did you know that you can use a dictation button on Microsoft Word? And when you do that, you will see how the system is picking up your words and what it hears. And I have loved using this past week, because I can then see what words I'm speaking in a little bit more of an accent and which ones I am not. Anyway, my friend, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're in the program, what was your biggest takeaways this week? I would love to know. You can feel free to connect with me over on Instagram or in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.